All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. We're going to uncover the surprising truth behind what actually drives economic success. We hear so many buzzwords in the business world today. Disruptors, unicorns, game changers, all of that. But when you strip away the hype and look strictly at the hard data, what is literally propelling our economies forward? Today, we're exploring the reality of high-growth firms. We'll be drawing directly from comprehensive global economic research to finally separate the facts from the fiction.
To start off, take a second and really think about your local economy. Ask yourself, who is actually doing the heavy lifting when it comes to creating new jobs and wealth? Is it the massive legacy corporations that have been around for a century? Or maybe it's the steady mom-and-pop shops down on Main Street? Or is it something else entirely? Well, the answer to this question is honestly staggering, and it completely shifts how we should think about economic policy and business growth.
Take a look at this artwork. This is Remedios Varo's Star Maker, or Papilla Estelar, and it perfectly captures our modern obsession with manufacturing superstars and unicorns. Policymakers and venture capitalists, they often act exactly like the figure in this painting, right? Meticulously grinding up stardust to feed to a select few businesses, just hoping they'll magically illuminate the entire economy. But as you'll see, the making of stars is way more of an art than a reliable science.
Section 1. Meet the high-growth firm.
So who are the actual beasts roaming our economic landscape? Financial literature absolutely loves to use a literal zoo of terms to describe firms. Obviously, you have your billion-dollar unicorns, but economists also contrast fast-moving, rapidly expanding gazelles with lumbering, massive elephants, small and quiet mice, and even struggling businesses that are affectionately referred to in some studies as muppets. It sounds kind of playful, but getting the definition right is absolutely crucial if we want to understand how growth actually happens.
Here's the most important takeaway. International standards, like those from the OECD, define a high-growth firm not by media hype, but by an absolute mathematical threshold. We are looking at firms with 10 or more employees that experience an average annualized growth of greater than 20% over a 3-year period. That can be in employment or revenue. It's all about consistent, rapid expansion. No fairy dust required here, just hard, measurable scale.
Section 2. The 80-20 Rule.
This brings us to a truly fascinating mathematical anchor that dictates global job creation. It brilliantly illustrates the 80-20 rule of firm growth. Across dozens of developing and high-income countries, high-growth firms typically make up 20% or less of all businesses. Yet despite being a distinct minority, they generate a massive 80% of all new jobs and sales. They are the dynamic core of the market. A tiny fraction of businesses is carrying the overwhelming majority of the economic weight. And to put that into perspective, in some places the concentration is even more extreme. In the UK and Sweden, roughly 6% of firms created around half of all the jobs in the economy over a 3-year period. In Finland, studies showed fewer than 5% of firms created 90% of the jobs. These aren't just businesses, they're the vital engines keeping the entire system moving. You really need to let that sink in for a moment. If we removed these few high flyers from the equation, the rest of the economy is actually destroying more jobs than it creates. The net change in employment and output would literally be negative without the positive contribution of high-growth firms. As economist Paul Krugman famously pointed out, when it comes to determining an economy's overall performance, this kind of dynamic productivity isn't just important, it is nearly everything.
Section 3. Fact versus fiction.
All right, time to burst some bubbles. We need to separate the romanticized pop culture myths from the hard economic data. The popular fiction is that a high-growth firm is always a small, young, high-tech startup in a garage just destined for endless expansion. Actually, scratch that stereotype. The fact is, the data reveals they are often older, established, medium to large firms, and they're spread across highly diverse sectors, from high-tech to completely low-tech traditional manufacturing. Oh, and their growth spurts? Surprisingly short-lived.
They're essentially the one-hit wonders of the business world. Achieving high growth once does not guarantee a company will keep growing. In fact, after a high-growth event, a staggering 50%, literally half of these firms, exit the market entirely within the next 3 to 6 years, and fewer than 15% ever repeat the magic of a high-growth episode.
So, as this sums up perfectly, high growth is just a fleeting phase. It is not an inherent, permanent trait baked into a company's DNA.
Some firms hit this hypergrowth stride after a decade of totally average performance. And because these benefits only happen within narrow windows, the elusive nature of high growth makes it incredibly tricky to plan around.
Section 4. The problem with picking winners.
Which really begs the question, right? If high growth is so elusive, why on earth do governments spend billions trying to catch these unicorns? Well, as the source material points out, the process by which a policymaker or an investor tries to identify and accelerate high-potential businesses remains purely an art, not a reliable science. We all want to believe we can spot the next big thing, but the reality of business dynamics is just chaotic.
Think about the absolute smartest investors in the room. When experts, including seasoned venture capitalists using advanced predictive models and machine learning, try to predict which specific firms will succeed and achieve high growth, their strike rate is a dismal 2 to 12%. Even in the hands of professionals, success is mostly random. The vast majority of targeted projects just end up losing money.
Because of this, trying to cherry-pick winners is largely a fool's errand. It often relies on flawed metrics, wasting precious public resources on weak empirical foundations. Plus, when programs try to screen potential winners based on outward traits, like a founder's age, gender, or even IQ scores, they often end up selecting already well-off beneficiaries. This doesn't just fail to spark growth, it can actually end up widening existing social inequalities. Definitely not what we want.
Section 5. The ABCs of growth. Okay, so if we can't reliably pick the winners, how do we actually support economic growth? What's the game plan? The solution lies in shifting our focus entirely to the ABCs of growth entrepreneurship. This is a framework that creates the environment where any firm with the right potential can suddenly scale. Let's break it down. A is for allocative efficiency. This means making it incredibly easy for new productive firms to enter the market. But, just as importantly, it means ensuring less productive firms can exit the market gracefully. When bad firms fail, they release talent, capital, and resources. Those resources can then be quickly reallocated to more efficient firms through flexible labor and financial markets.
Next up, B is for business-to-business spillovers. Growth just doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in dense networks. By encouraging clustering, improving transport infrastructure, and connecting local firms to global export markets or foreign direct investment, you're creating a web of knowledge sharing. When one firm succeeds, the surrounding suppliers and buyers in that network also see their performance improve. It's a win-win.
And finally, C is for capabilities. This is all about providing the ecosystem and financial incentives that help everyday managers become better leaders. It includes supporting innovation, which, by the way, often happens right on the factory floor without formal R&D departments. It also means providing access to advisory services, matching grants, and incubators. You build the capacity of the workforce, and trust me, the high-growth episodes will follow.
Because at the end of the day, fostering a healthy, competitive ecosystem will naturally create the space for those incredible high-growth moments to happen completely on their own. The data is absolutely clear. We cannot manufacture the stars, but we can certainly clear the sky so they have the room to shine. So ask yourself, is your local economy still wasting time hunting for a mythical unicorn, or is it doing the hard work of cultivating a vibrant forest where anyone can thrive? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the data.